Marc-Joseph Marion du Fresne. Marc-Joseph Marion du Fresne, May 22, 1724, June 12, 1772, with the surname sometimes spelt Dufresne, was a Breton-born French explorer who made important discoveries in the South Indian Ocean, in Tasmania and in New Zealand. Dufresne was killed by Mauri in 1772. He is commemorated in various place names, as well as in the name of the research vessel providing logistical support to the French southern territories of Ile Amsterdam, Ile Saint-Paul, Ile Crozet, and Ile Kerguelen, the Marion Dufresne II. Early career. Dufresne was born in St. Malo and, until recently, was thought to have joined the French East India Company at the age of 11 as a sub-lieutenant aboard the Duc de Bourgogne. However, the Australian historian Edward Uyker, in the revised French edition of his biography of Marion Dufresne, has revealed that this was, in fact, the future explorer's older brother. During the War of the Austrian Succession, he commanded several ships and was a captain by 1745. In the 7 Years' War, he was engaged in various naval operations. After the war, he again sailed on the East India routes and eventually settled in Port Louis on Mauritius, where he also was the harbourmaster for some time. Exploration. When the French East India Company collapsed and was dissolved in 1769, Dufresne was suddenly unemployed. He convinced Pierre Poivre, the civil administrator, to equip him with 2 ships and send him on a twofold mission to the Pacific. Dufresne's fellow explorer Louis-Antoine de Bougainville had recently returned from the Pacific with a Tahitian native, a Hutaru. Dufresne was engaged to return a Hutaru to his homeland, and then to explore the South Pacific for Terra Australis Incognita. For these purposes Dufresne was given 2 ships, the Mascarin and the Marquise de Castries. Neither part of Dufresne's mission could be achieved. A Hutaru died of smallpox shortly after embarkation at Port Louis, and the expedition did not locate the Australian mainland. Instead, Dufresne discovered first the Prince Edward Islands and then the Crozet Islands before sailing towards New Zealand and Australia. His ships spent several days in Tasmania, where Marion Bay in the southeast is named after him. He was the first European to explore the island and, due to his interaction with Aboriginal Tasmanians, was the first person to show that Tasmania was not terra nullius. New Zealand. Bay of Islands, 1772. Dufresne sighted New Zealand's Mount Taranaki on March 25, 1772, and named the mountain Pic Mascarin without knowing that James Cook had named it Mount Egmont 3 years earlier. Over the next month, they explored the islands, repaired their 2 ships and treated their scurvy, first anchoring at Spirits Bay, and later in the Bay of Islands. Apparently their relations with the Mauri were peaceful at first. They could communicate thanks to their Tahitian vocabulary learned from a Hutaru, and the Mauri even held a ceremony for them. The French had been anchored in the Bay of Islands for many weeks and got on well with the chief Takuri, of the Ngapui-Iwi tribe. The French established a significant vegetable garden on Motorua Island. They had been invited to visit local Maori at their pa, a very rare event, and had slept there overnight. Maori in return had been invited on board the ships and had slept in the ships overnight. The French officers made a detailed study of the habits and customs of Maori, including greetings, sexual mores, fishing methods, the role of females, the making of fern root paste, the killing of prisoners and cannibalism. 60 of the French sailors had developed scurvy and were on shore in a tent hospital. In these months 2 Maori had been arrested. The first had sneaked on board ship and stolen a cutlass. He was detained for a brief period to give him a fright, then released to his friends. On one occasion Dufresne was invited on shore to a special celebration where he was crowned, and Takuri made it clear that he was making Dufresne the king of all the surrounding area. After this Mauri made a night raid on the hospital camp, taking away many guns and uniforms. While the soldiers chased the raiders, Mauri slipped back and stole an anchor. 2 men were held as hostage against the return of the stolen goods. One of them admitted he had been involved in the theft but accused Takuri of being involved. Dufresne, finding the men bound, ordered them unbound and released. Later an armed party of Maori approached the French as if to challenge them, but the French understood enough Tonga to make peace with them by exchanging gifts. Murder and Cannibalization, 1772. 2 contemporary accounts were written by French officers, Jean Roux and de Klesmer. During the night of June 9, 1772, French sentries at the hospital camp noticed about 6 Maori prowling. In the morning it was discovered that Maori had also been prowling around a second camp where the French had been making masts. The next day Maori from Marion Island arrived with a present of fish. Roux said the Maori were astonished at the blunderbusses he had mounted outside his tent. He noticed the visiting chief taking a close look at the weapons and how they worked, as well as the defenses of the camp, and became suspicious of his motives. The chief asked for the guns to be demonstrated and Roux shot a dog. That night more Maori were found on Moturoa Island prowling around the hospital camp but ran when sentries approached. Captain Duclesmer alerted Dufresne to the rise in suspicious activity, but Dufresne did not listen. On the afternoon of June 12, 1772, Dufresne and 15 armed sailors went to take Mauri's village and then went in the captain's gig to go fishing in his favorite fishing area. Dufresne and 26 men of his crew were killed and eaten. Those killed included de Vaudricourt and Pierre Lehoux, a volunteer, Thomas Belouavon, Pierre Mauclair, the second pilot, from St. Malo, Louis Ménager, the steersman, from Lorient, Vincent Kerner of Port Louis, Marc Lagarve from Lorient, Marc Lacour of Auray, Jean Mestique of Plouviner, Pierre Caloche of Languedoc and Mataron Domelin of Ilion. That night 400 armed Maori suddenly attacked the hospital camp but were stopped in their tracks by the threat of the multiple blunderbusses. Roux held his fire and realized that they had narrowly escaped being massacred in their sleep. One chief told Roux that Take Mauri had killed Marion. At this point longboats full of armed French sailors arrived with the news that Dufresne and the sailors had been killed. One survivor, who had been spared, told them Mauri had tricked them into going into the bush, where they had been ambushed, with all the others being killed. In the following days the French came under relentless attack. The next day about 1,200 Maori surrounded the French, led by Take Mauri. As they approached, Roux ordered Take Mauri shot. Later even more Maori reinforcements arrived. The French decided to abandon the hospital camp. The Maori then stole all the tools and supplies and burnt the camp down. They were close enough that the French could see they were wearing the clothes of Dufresne and his fellow dead sailors. The French retreated to Moturoa Island. That night Maori again attacked the camp and this time the French opened a general fire. The next day even more Maori arrived taking their forces to about 1,500 men. The French charged this huge force with 26 armed soldiers and put them to flight, the Maori fleeing back to take Mauri's pa. The French attacked the pa, firing at the defenders, who showered them with spears. The remainder got into canoes and fled. About 250 Maori including 5 chiefs were killed in the battle. Many of the French were wounded. Roux, Julien Marie Crozet and Ambroise Bernard Marie Leclesmer took joint command and undertook reprisals against the Maori over a 1-month period as the ships were prepared for departure. A month later on 7th of July Roux searched Take Mauri's deserted pa and found a sailor's cooked head on a spike, as well as human bones near a fire. They left on July 12, 1772. The French buried a bottle at Waipoa on Moturoa, containing the arms of France and a formal statement taking possession of the whole country, with the name of France Australe. However, both published and unpublished accounts of Dufresne's death circulated widely, giving New Zealand a bad reputation as a dangerous land unsuitable for colonization and challenged stereotypes of Pacific Islanders as noble savages then prevalent in Europe. Possible motives. There are different possible reasons for the massacre, including that the chief Take Mauri considered that Dufresne was a threat to his authority, or Take Mauri became concerned at the economic effect of supplying food for the 2 crews, or that Dufresne's crew, possibly unwittingly, broke several tapu laws related to their not carrying out the rituals required before the cutting down of kauri trees, or breaking of tapu by fishing in Manawa-ura Bay. An account told by Ngapui informant to John White, ethnographer 1826 to 1891, but not published until 1965, describes the chiefs Take Mauri and Tohatapu as participating in the massacre when Dufresne and 26 men of his crew were killed and cannibalized. Apparently tapu had been placed on Manawa-ura Bay after members of the local tribe drowned here some time earlier, and their bodies had been washed up at Takari's, Take Mauri's, Cove. Therefore, the local Maori believed that the violation would anger the gods and neighboring tribes, provoking war. However, the French had been at the supposed Tapu beach for 17 days. The beach was at the foot of Take Mauri's village and controlled by him. Take Mauri had numerous dealings with the French and he had been on board the ships at the cove many times. Dufresne fished at the cove, now known as Assassination Cove, located at 35 degrees 15 minutes and 26 seconds south, 174 degrees 12 minutes and 48 seconds east in New Zealand's Bay of Islands area, numerous times in the 26 days he was there, without Maori suggesting that fishing was tapu or forbidden.